So now that you have seen all of the quilts that I showed you in the little New York Beauty quilt show, it's time to learn how to make one. Before we can make it, we need to know the tools. I think the most important tool for making anything with paper piecing technique is the add a quarter ruler. Now this is the 6-inch add a quarter ruler, and this is going to be the most common size. You're going to use this more than anything else. But know that there is a 12-inch add a quarter available also. The 12-inch is what you would use if you were making a larger mariner's compass. So what makes the add a quarter unique is on the underside of the ruler is a lip, and that lip is a 1/4 inch from the edge, so that when you're trimming the paper piecing, you will get a perfect 1/4 inch. When they came out with this tool, totally changed everything. I suddenly loved paper piecing. Without it, yeah, not so much. The next thing is the rotary cutter. I would prefer a 28mm rotary cutter. What I would prefer is the ergonomic Olfa 28mm rotary cutter, but that's no longer available. They discontinued it. For reasons unknown to all quilters in the universe, Olfa stopped making it. So instead, you have the normal straight-handled 28mm. I shall make a plea to everybody to please write Olfa and to tell them to start making the ergonomic 28mm again, because we miss it so much. The next thing is the paper. So I like to use one of the papers. This is the one, the Carol Doak Foundation paper. It is a recycled, lightweight paper that you can see through enough. It tears away beautifully. It runs through your copy machine. So something like this. Some people like to use regular copy paper. Go for it. It's okay. It'll dull your needle a little bit. It'll make it a little harder to take the paper off, but that's okay. You'll be paper piecing. Everything will be good. The mini Clover iron, this is really important. Having that small iron that you can get to the seams with to press them really nice is really important. Now keep in mind, you can do it with your thumbnail, you can finger press, and the cool thing about that is you know where it's at. It's always right here. You can do that. But especially with a New York Beauty with those long points, having the Clover mini iron is going to make it so that the fabric lays flatter. Now, in the Clover mini iron is this piece of plastic with the piece of metal on top, and they call that an iron holder, and it's not. It doesn't work. So what you really want to do is get yourself a mug, a nice big mug that you can set the iron in just like that. You're going to want to have some Mary Ellen's Best Press or a spray sizing of your choice. I like the Mary Ellen's because it doesn't stick to my iron when I'm ironing, and with paper piecing, I'm pressing from the top side of the design. So I like that the iron doesn't stick and it doesn't leave any residue. The last thing is just going to be a standard ruler. So we're going to use this to do some marking. When I come back, we're going to look at the designs, and I'm going to give you some helpful tips to change your design just a little bit so that all of your blocks will turn out just the right size. So here is a basic New York Beauty block. This is the one that we're going to make. And you see how perfect it is. I mean, honest to Pete, it's a perfect 10.5-inch size. And it's not because I pieced it perfectly or I pressed it perfectly. It's because I have a little trick, and this is the little trick. Here is my New York Beauty design. So this could be any New York Beauty design. What I want to show you is to add 1/8 of an inch all around the outside perimeter of the entire block. So I'm going to take my ruler just to show you what this would look like and add 1/8 inch to this side, turn around 1/8 inch to this side, and by adding this 1/8 of an inch to the outside perimeter of all of the edges of the block, this will give you fudge factor. You'll be able to finish your block, spray size it, and then trim it down. This extra 1/8 of an inch, which actually is 1/4 inch all the way around, makes all the difference in the world. So this is the outside perimeter. So on the outside of the quarter circle, the outside of the arc, the outside of the paper piece, the outside all the way around of the background piece. So when you're looking at what your papers will look like, so this is the paper piecing section. Here I have added that 1/8 inch to the 2 outside perimeters. On the arch, I added the 1/8 inch to the outside perimeters. And these are the 3 pieces that you do usually with freezer paper. So on this is the background piece. all the way around the outside perimeter and on the bottom of the quarter circle. So that is the tip that I have to give you so that your New York beauties will turn out the exact size. Next, we're going to talk about some color choices. So I want to show you some color options, some of the blocks that I've made, so that you have some idea maybe how you want to go ahead picking out the colors for your quilt. The quilt that I'm working on now is, let's call it eclectic. I'm just kind of pulling all the pretty fabrics that I have out of my stash and making lots of New York Beauty blocks to make myself a really cool New York Beauty. So here is some of the colors. I like using sometimes a solider fabric on the background. The points, I always on the points want to have a high contrast. If I'm going to work so hard to get those points, I want everybody to know that I've worked really hard to get those points and that they're all perfect. Here's another one. With this one, I use those two colors, the two greens, to give it a little bit of dimension on the points. Love this really wild on the outside. So just a few more of this. I love this fabric, one of my all-time favorite from Westminster. So from here, I pulled out some of the colors. So in this multicolor is some teal and some green and some tan and some yellow. So using one of the fabrics to pull out the colors. This is wild. Look at this. So here we have some wild and crazy prints up here, and here I've again used high contrast, and this is done with a stripe. I think it's really cool the way, the technique that I use for paper piecing my points. You get these really great lines from the stripes. You wouldn't expect that to happen, but with my technique it does. So there's just a few of them. Now I want to show you some that I'm planning. So here is one of the ones that I'm planning. I used this multicolored fabric and I found some cool colors in there. So this will be my arch. So this will be my quarter, my little quarter circle, my arch. These two will be my points and that'll be my big background. Another one. This one's so cool. Love black and white pin dot. Oops, actually that's wrong. I wanted the black and white pin dot up there. So this again is the cool one with all the colors, and this fabric will be the large section in the background with all those really cool ladies in it. And then the last one will be with a butterfly. I'm going to show you how to perfectly cut that out so you can fussy cut the butterfly and not have to worry about it stretching using a black and white pin dot. And these are the two that'll be my colors. Next, we're going to start the paper piecing process. This is the paper piece arch that I'm going to do. Now, I made copies of these, and this does have that center line for the two-tone points. I'm not going to do those only because it's a little bit more time-consuming, so I'll just skip them. But here they are. I've got that 1/8 inch added to the two outside edges. I've got 3 of them here. I'm just going to cut out my papers. And those are my arches. Now I need to have the fabric, so I'm going to do this with 2 fabrics. The trick I have for you in the way that I paper piece is that we're going to do this with strips. We are not going to cut out triangles, and we are not going to cut out rectangles. We're going to use strips. But how big of a strip do I need to cut? What you want to do is measure the entire line of the point, not measuring the point from point to point, but on that sole line. That's where you want to set your ruler right here. And you want to start the measurement 1/4 inch past the cut line of the arch. So that's the cut line of the arch. Start the measurement here and go all the way up and then add another 1/4 inch. So the measurement is 4 inches, and I'm going to add that 1/4 on the top and the bottom. So 4.5 inches. For this paper piecing, I need strips that are 4.5 inches wide. So here's my fabrics. I only have a 4-inch ruler. That's okay. It's paper piecing. And with paper piecing, you don't need that precise cutting. So I'm going to go, yeah, that looks like about 1/2 inch to me. So this is going to be a 4.5 inch strip. Put that to the side. So these are the 2 strips that I'm going to use. And for this one, the orange is going to be my point, and the green is going to be my background. So I'm going to put them right sides together, the orange and the green. The orange is my point, the green is my background. So when I start paper piecing, I'm going to lay the paper piecing design, the paper itself, on the green side. You want to start with the background fabric. This is the wrong side of the green fabric, wrong side being, if you think it's not the right side, it's okay with me if it were, but here is the wrong side of the green, and here is my line. And if I fold this back, you'll see that I am maybe a ½ inch from the edge, and I'm running it generally parallel to the edge of the fabric. So there is my line. I'm going to put a couple of pins in here. So from here, I can go to my sewing machine. So now we're at our sewing machine ready to sew. So I've got my pieces that I'm going to sew. When you're doing the sewing, you're putting the paper under the machine, and then the fabric is out here to the left. My machine is set up with a 2.0 stitch length. So I lower that stitch length a little bit, and I'm going to sew on that line. That's the idea of paper piecing, sewing on the line. End and cut my threads. Now with the process of paper piecing, the first piece is the odd guy. All the rest of them just go the exact same steps, but the first one's a little bit different. So I have my line sewed. The next step is to trim off the excess. I told you that when I lined it up, it was about a ½ inch, and that was about what it was. Now I'm going to use my add a quarter, and that little lip is on the bottom. That lip is going to just butt right up to the folded piece of paper, and I trim that off. Now unfold the paper, flip it over. Now take your top piece and bring it forward. This is what we want to press. So I'm going to grab my hot iron from all the way over here. Yeah, all the way over there. You don't want your hot iron here because then you're going to touch it and it's a hot iron. Keep your hot iron all the way over there so that you don't accidentally hurt yourself. We don't want quilting to be a dangerous sport. So I'm just going to press that. And yes, I am pressing it while it's even on top of my cutting surface. That's okay. It's not going to hurt your cutting surface. If I took it and touched it down, then it might be a problem, but we just won't do that. So we've pressed that. Now we flip it back and spin it around. I need to cut off this extra piece because I need to use that for piecing. Here's my main trick. Instead of trimming that off at a diagonal and then having a piece of fabric that's at a strange angle, don't do it. Just trim it off straight. Push that away. Later on, we'll cut that at a diagonal. For this section, I want to fold back on my next sew line. Remember, I'm skipping those. So I'm going to sew on, need to fold on that sew line. First, I need to tear this little bit of paper right here from the edge so that I can fold it. And this is so funny. This is the card that comes with the add a quarter ruler. Use that little piece of card. It's the perfect cardstock weight to do. Place this on the next sew line and fold it back over top of that card. Now using your add a quarter ruler, again, you are not going to cut that off on the diagonal yet. You're going to first cut it off straight so that when I go to use this orange piece again, I will have that straight edge to work with. I won't have to be worrying about messing with an angle. Then come and do your diagonal cut. Unfold, move the card out of the way, and flip it over. This is the angle that I just cut, so this is where I'm going to place my next piece. So going back to my green piece, I've got that, oh, that's not the side I cut, this is the side. Got that straight edge that I just cut, going to place that right over top of it, flip it over, and go to the sewing machine. Now I'm going to start off of the paper, sewing with a straight line. And when I come up to the point, I'm going to continue to sew all the way off to right there. Cut my thread. Go back to your ironing surface. And it is important that you have your machine kind of set up like this with your sewing machine here, your ironing and cutting surface right here, your iron over there at a safe distance. If you have to get up to the ironing board, that would make this process take way too long. So we're going to press this. Flip it over again. My next sew line is this line here, so I need to tear this little bit of paper first. Using my card, lay the card on the line, fold back on the card, line up for the straight cut first, and then the angle cut. So we're going to continue that process, but now I want to show you how I really do it. There is no way I make one arch at a time. It's not that I'm trying to rush through quilting. You know how much I love to quilt. I'm not trying to rush through it. I'm just trying to be efficient so that I can make more quilts and buy more fabric, pretty much is the way things work. So I've prepared a couple of other ones to do. I'm going to show you how I chain piece this. So starting with this one, I'm going to lay down my next piece. I'm going to set that right here and get it ready. This is another one. I did the first section already. I'm going to get him ready. Use my light blue fabric. Lay it down. And then another one that I prepared. Same idea. Going to lay down. And so I like to stack my little ones that I'm not using here, and these are the ones I am using. When I'm on a roll and I know I'm not going to get interrupted in my studio, I'll do 6 or 7 of these at a time. So it works. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine. Going to again start off the paper. And this time sew all the way to the point and stop with your needle in down position. Grab your next piece. Starting off the paper so I can chain piece this. Chain piecing is something we already do. Well, why can't it be done in paper piecing too? You know the advantages of paper piecing. It saves time and thread, and so that's going to save money, so you can buy more fabric. So this is, oops, I got to line that up again. Everything about chain piecing is good. So it should also be good for when you're doing paper piecing. Now as I get to the end of this one, I want to take the one that I started with back here, which I have up here. There it is. Got a pair of scissors. Going to cut him off the back side. Going to go through the same steps of pressing. Flip it over. Do that little tear at the point. Use your card. Fold back on the next sew line. All right, if I'm not losing all my parts, there we are. Using the add a quarter, cut the straight edge first, then the angle. Unfold. Now I'm going to line up my green fabric. Remember, I told you I just leave these here. There's my green fabric just waiting for me. Line that up on that edge I just cut. And chain piece that. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Cut off the back side. Flip it over. Press. Trim. So we need to tear that little bit off the point first. Lay your card on your next sew line. Cut the straight edge first, and then the angle. Flip that over. Now I need my orange fabric right here. Lay the orange fabric down on the seam or the cut that you just made. Go to your sewing machine and chain piece. And I would continue that process, taking the one off the back side that I've done, adding the strip to it, and go all the way around until they're all done. And you don't get confused because all your fabrics are just kind of stacked right here. You know where they're at. So when we come back, the arches will be done. We'll be pressing and trimming and taking off the paper. So now my arch is all pieced. I just want to show it to you from the back side. Everything looks good. These ones extend farther than they need to be. Now it's time to spray size it. Why do we need to spray size it? Because these are going to be cut on an angle. I'm going to be taking the paper off, and I don't want the fabrics to stretch. Now, there's you'll sometimes see instructions that'll tell you to stitch around the edge and leave the paper in until the block is finished. For me, that just doesn't work, and it's just not necessary. If we use a little spray size on it, it's going to secure all those fabrics, so I won't have to worry about it. So I'm going to give it a nice, a lot of spray sizing, and use a nice hot iron, and I'm going to take my time and press this all really, really dry. Everything looks really dry. Now, she sped that up so it wouldn't have bored you to death, but that took quite a while to get that all spray sized so that it's going to be very secure. Now I'm going to trim it. So I'm going to go to my cutting surface. I'm going to use just my add a quarter ruler because it's in my hand, and I'm going to trim this to that 1/8 inch bigger than the original design. Remember how we drew that all on? Trim my straight edges first. And then I'm going to trim the arch. Now, you can trim this with a pair of scissors if you'd like. I just take my rotary cutter and go along the edge and trim that. Then do the inside of the arch. And then flip it over and say, ta-da! That is like so pretty. Something about when you get them all trimmed, they just look so nice. Now it's time to take off the paper. So you always want to take off the paper in the opposite numbering order that you put them on. Now this doesn't have numbers, but I know I started here and I finished here. So now I'm going to take the paper off, carefully folding it back and then pulling the paper out. Then if you get your finger just underneath that paper, you can just give that seam just the slightest little bit of a pull, and you'll get the paper to come out from underneath the stitching line. I hate it when there's paper left behind. There we go. All the paper is off the back side. I got to get these little triangles out, but it is ready for the next step. And the next step will be curved piecing. We'll do that next time.